Greetings. In college, I was a music major. It sounds really strange to people who aren't in music, but it's not what you think it is. You spend a lot of time basically analyzing music or learning how to criticize it. Depending on the teacher, you may find that there's certain music that teachers think is perfection that others don't, and certain music that they hate that you absolutely love. Yet you learn how to criticize it. For instance, I didn't know a lot about classical music when I went to college. It sounds strange. All I knew was cartoons. We didn't have a classical radio station, so my dad had some records, and that's all the classical music I knew other than what I played on the piano. And I never knew how almost any of it sounded. The teachers would say, "Oh, you're playing good enough. You hit all the notes. Let's move to the next song." So I was astounded when there was a certain music class I took where we actually had to go to the music listening room and pull out the records or tapes and listen to songs. And I was stunned by what I was hearing because a lot of that stuff didn't sound anything like what I played. Anyway, you had to learn all kind of things to be able to basically listen to a portion of a song, not necessarily the whole song, but a portion of the song and analyze it. So, for instance, you would hear it is an A flat. You would hear it's 4/4 or 3/3, or you had to figure out what the timing was. You had to figure out, is it adagio? Is it allegretto? You had to figure out, does it have a motif? Is it using 12-tone technique? There's all these different things you had to do. And what would happen is that when you had classes and you had a test, the teacher would, for you kids who don't know what a record player is, basically you put this big disc, there were small discs as well, but you put a disc on a turntable and you had this arm that had a needle on it. And most of the time you started at the beginning and you would just listen to everything, but during a test, what the teacher would do is she would take an arm and she would drop it somewhere. And you had a minute to listen to a portion of this song, and you had to tell everything you knew about this song, including who the composer was and the name of the song and what country it was from and what period of time the music was from. Was it from the Romantic period? Was it from the, oh my God, the Renaissance period? Was it modern? You had to know these things within a minute. You had to fill all this stuff out. And what ends up happening is that you start listening to a lot of music from a critical point of view rather than from an enjoyment point of view, which is a shame because I did that for a long time for a lot of music. Now, it also helped me to gain appreciation of rock music, which I'd never heard until I got to college, because I just heard it as a lot of noise like first couple of years of college, but later on I started to notice that there was some great construction in some of these songs. Queen, for instance, was remarkable, and some of the other acts with some truly remarkable music that I just gained an appreciation of. Of course, I was a disco fan, so it didn't matter. You still had your favorite music, and it was just your favorite whatsoever, and you went with it. But I'm starting off with this part telling you how sometimes you get trained not to pay attention to stuff because it's fun, but because you've been taught how to break things down and what's missing or what may be there that no one else notices. And I do that because a lot of people wonder, how come movie critics are so terrible as people? Why is it that they can take a movie that you think, hey, this was actually pretty good, I had a lot of fun with it, and tear it down? How come so many movies end up where audiences give it an A and critics average around 50%? Truthfully, it's not just critics. Look what happened to First Jedi. My God, I love this movie. I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was still in the same spirit that Star Wars was in. But a lot of other people, a lot of critical people, beat this movie up. They didn't like how Luke was. They didn't like Rey. They don't like Finn. They didn't like the other young lady whose name I can't think of. They didn't like any of that. They said, well, this isn't like Star Wars. And my thought was, one, it was like Star Wars, and two, this was fun. I really enjoyed this movie. I bought it the day it came out on DVD and Blu-ray. So obviously I enjoyed it. And why these people really hated it is because it's not what they wanted it to be. When I was taking composition, early composition in college, I would you know, put these notes together in sheet music, and then we show up in the class, and I would play it, and I'm thinking, this is pretty good, if you ask me. And I never got higher than a B. And I would say, well, wait, the chord progressions are accurate, aren't they? Didn't I get everything correct? He says, yes, but Bach wouldn't have done it that way. That was his standard, Bach. So everyone else wrote like Bach did to get better grades. I took some chances. I knew what chord progressions I wanted. I sat there at the piano listening to them, and I liked it. It didn't sound like Bach. I didn't want to sound like Bach. Could I have done it? Probably, but I didn't want to sound like Bach. So First Jedi was not like the original Star Wars. It's not supposed to. This is supposed to be a long time later. Things progress. Things changed. There are kids who are going to school now who are never going to learn some of the stuff I learned. And when I went to school, there's stuff I didn't learn that my parents learned. That's just how it is. So I'm sitting here saying this for two reasons. One, I'm going to say we need to lighten up when it comes to certain things like this and go out and just have a little bit of fun. I love the Harry Potter movies. Loved every single one of them. But I'm going to tell you, there's some things that were missing from the movies that were in the books that I wish were there. Do I then hate the entire movie because they may have missed a few things I really wanted to see? Can't do it. Those movies are long as it is. How are they going to get all that stuff in there? So that's number one. Number two, if you're creating something, whether it's a video, whether it's a blog post, article, a product, a program, or whatever, if you got at least 50% of the people who love what you're doing, those are the people you need to worry about. Even if it's 20%, but those 20% are buying your products and you're able to make money off of it, those are the only people you need to worry about. Now, if everyone hates it, then maybe you have to say, okay, let me look at this. Let me maybe modify some things, or maybe I need to create something different. I mean, there is, some times where you have to say, I can make some changes to this and make it better. But in general, don't be afraid of the criticism. Get out there, do it, do your thing, do it as good as you can, and deal with it later on. You're going to be your worst critic anyway. So stop listening to everyone else. Try to do what you can with love and happiness in your heart. And I mean that. I mean that part because, you know what? If you do some hateful mess, if you're doing racism or misogyny or some of that other kind of stuff, you know what? I'm going to come down on you just like everybody else. Let's not be hateful. Let's do the best we can to help people, to entertain people, to inform people, to make ourselves look better and feel better, to possibly make money. That's my story. My name is Mitch Mitchell. Let me know your thoughts. Hope y'all take care.